Okay, so I'm going to be doing a little video on how to build a snake box. And where I work, we get called to people's homes pretty routinely to remove snakes from their property. And the majority of the time, they're rattlesnakes. And you know, rattlesnakes, they're usually pretty docile. They don't present too big of a problem, but of course the potential is always there for something bad to happen. Knock on wood, we haven't had any issues, but we've obviously had a lot of close calls and some unnecessary close calls as far as I'm concerned. So I want to build just a little bit better box.
Okay, I'm going to cut to this video real quick so I can show you the process that we're currently using to remove snakes. I'm going to point out a couple flaws in the system and show you what I'm trying to eliminate with this new snake box. One of the very first things you're going to see is that this western diamondback has to be grabbed by the neck with the snake pole. Now we do that for our safety because we have the most control of the snake this way, but this causes a lot of unnecessary stress on the animal. They don't like to be grabbed that way, and they are vertebrate, so if it gets too stressful, it could actually start whipping around and potentially fracture its neck. While we have an obligation to protect people, we have that same obligation to protect the animals that we come across. So I'm really hoping that by designing a safer box, we won't have to grab the snakes this way anymore. Okay, here's the huge safety concern that we have to eliminate. What you're going to see is someone's going to have to try to come in and close the lid over this bucket while the snake pole is being removed. So there's an opportunity there for the snake to restrike or even make its way up out of the bucket altogether. Okay, so I'm sure you can see the safety concerns we have with this process. So another thing to keep in mind is this lid he worked so hard to get on there is going to have to be removed pretty soon because we always release these snakes back into their natural habitat. Now, we can't see the snake, and a lot of times they are coiled and ready to strike as you're removing the lid. So another safety feature I want to add to the new box is some type of window so we can see exactly where the snake is and what it's doing before we open it.
You can see this big scoop here. There's a hole at the bottom, so we would be able to drop the snake into this. It would slide down and into the bottom of our box. I'll build the box around it. Not only that, but this hole at the bottom of this scoop, the snakes would naturally want to dive down in there just for protection. And so I'm thinking this will really help us. Then obviously once it's inside the box, it's going to be very difficult for the snake to make its way back through this hole.
Okay, unfortunately, one of the first things I had to do was cut the scoop down. I took about 2 inches off each side of it. It was just too big at its standard size, and it just wasn't practical. So the snakes are typically too shy to come out of the bucket on their own. So one of the things I want to do is add a melamine base to this box so it's a nice slick surface. That way if the snake doesn't come out on its own, I can just kind of tip the box forward and the snake can safely slide out. So I'm just adding a couple pieces of framing to the front of the scoop to help support it. You get some pretty heavy snakes sometimes, so I just want to make sure that there's enough material there to make sure that it can handle the weight. Okay, so the box is pretty much framed out. Now I'm building the front door. And you can see I took my table saw, put some grooves in this framing. That way I can slide this piece of acrylic into them. And this is going to allow us to be able to see the snake. Remember I mentioned earlier that I'd like to be able to see the snake before we open the door. I'm masking the interior of the box so I can paint and seal the outside of it.
Okay, so pretty much done. There's probably maybe a couple little things that I'm going to do, but for the most part it's finished. Got a handle up on top, and you can see I kind of offset the handle towards this side, so that's going to allow people when they're carrying it, you know, on their side like this, it's going to be a lot easier with it. You can see with it offset like this rather than being in the middle, it makes it a little bit more awkward. So not only that, but by offsetting it to the back, it encourages people to carry it this way rather than towards the door with the door opening away from them. So they'll be carrying it with the door away. So that's the handle. You can see obviously when you get to the snake, you pop this top, lift up the lid, and then that's the access to this this chute that I was talking about, that the snake should just slide right down and into this little area down here. And then you've got protection because it's not going to be able to come back up through that hole. It's not very likely, I guess I should say, that it's going to make it back up. So,
Okay, before I demonstrate this box, I want to take an opportunity to point something out here real quick. This is another Western Diamondback, and Western Diamondbacks are described as one of the more aggressive rattlesnakes. Now, they don't mean aggressive as in this thing is going to chase you down and bite you. What they mean by aggressive is how likely this snake is to defend itself. Now, all snakes will defend themselves. Every single snake I've ever come across, and I've come across a lot of rattlesnakes, always do the same thing. They will first attempt to get away from you. If they can't get away from you or you're coming in too quick, they will rattle to let you know that they're there. If you still continue to approach them, they'll coil up. And if you get even closer, they're going to strike. But they are giving you every opportunity to either let them get away from you or let you get away from them. If you are bit by a rattlesnake, you either just accidentally stumbled across one and stepped on it, or you were doing something you should not have been doing with a snake. This little guy was removed from a commercial building, so he was a good sport, and I was able to do 2 quick videos on demonstrating the snake box. This one you can see I'm just going to push the snake pole all the way down in the hole and take the snake with it. So you can see this is a much safer process for everybody involved. We're keeping people out of harm's way, and I'm able to grab the snake in the center and significantly reduce the chance of injury. Okay, so this is the best part now. We get to release this snake back in the wild. It would be irresponsible if we would just dump this thing off in the desert and let it fend for itself. So we've taken the time to locate an area that's going to provide it with shade, shelter, maybe some food. What we're really hoping is that as soon as the snake comes out of the box, he finds a place to seek some refuge and then just kind of de-stress and get his bearings again. Okay, so just as I had hoped, the snake was able to go about 10 feet, located a hole now where it can go down and regroup. So nobody was harmed, and we have another successful catch and release. Thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed the video.